Hello, unit 6, day 6, course math 9. We are deep into factoring now. All the stuff is factoring. Again, factoring has a lot to do with number sense, about knowing your factors, about knowing your greatest common factors, of course. The first thing I want to point out with factoring that last time we really didn't have to worry about, but now that we're into it pretty deep, the first thing you need to recognize with factoring, this is actually a two, is that if you have a greatest common factor between all three, it has to come out first. That should be the first thing you kind of look for. So let's say for this one, this is 2u squared, 8u, and 42. All of these are even numbers, so you know for a fact that it very least has a 2. But it has to be the greatest common factor, and it looks like it is 2. So we're going to take 2 and put it up front. You cannot have the greatest common factor. You got to factor it out first. So in this case, it's 2. What's left over when you take out that 2 is u squared. Here, it's going to be 4u, because it's basically dividing everything by 2 or taking out the 2. And if you have 42 and divide that by 2, you get 21. Okay, so now you can factor this, but you cannot have had that greatest common factor in there. So now we can factor that. Same or different? We're going to say different, meaning it's going to be one positive, one negative. How do I know that? Because the last number is negative. That means it's going to be one positive here, one negative here, and I'm going to be subtracting to get my middle number. What are your multiples of 21 that subtract to give you 4? Doesn't 7 and 3, okay? 7 minus 3 is 4. So your bigger number is going to take this sign. Okay, the sign of the bigger number is the middle. So 7 is going to be positive, 3 is negative. This is your factor. And again, practice, 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 practice. And I'm sure Alex is giving you a whole bunch of those. Okay. All right, so now we have 5u squared plus 30u plus 70. Again, does this have a greatest common factor between the three? It looks like it does. It's actually 5. When I take out the greatest common factor, u squared is left, plus, I want to say this one is 6u, because it's 30 divided by 5, basically. And then the 70 divided by 5 becomes 14. So at the end, it's going to be 14. Okay. And if I had to factor this, if I could, same or different, I would say same. Same meaning they're both the same signs. They're both going to be positive. U plus, U plus. What are your multiples of 14 that add to give you 6? Multiples of 14 are what? 2 and 7. Is that it? 2 plus 7 is 9. So it doesn't, I'm glad they did this actually. It doesn't look like there are any multiples of 14 that add to give you 6. So since there are no multiples, you can't factor it. So your answer is just 5 came out, u squared plus 6u plus 14. That's all. Can't do anything with that. Can't make it, break it down to this one because this is not factorable. Okay, 14 is, yeah, not factorable. So you have to kind of leave it like that. And they did that like that for a reason, because some of them are not going to be. And Alex is definitely going to give you some. And you might have some on your test. So make sure you pay attention to that. All right. All right. So let's look at here. So 3, this is -1, -4. Those do not have greatest common factor. So that's the first thing we look for. When you have a number out front, there is something that we use called circle slide divide. There's multiple ways to figure these out. But I usually do circle slide divide. I've been doing it for 14 years. So you'll take the number only when they have a number here that, you can't factor it out. Like here, we factored it out so we can factor these numbers in here and we don't have to worry about doing all that. But in this case, you couldn't factor it out. So it's in the problem. We have to figure out how to do this, I would circle, multiply that number by this number. So whatever, but you can't do it here. You wouldn't do it here, but you do it here because we didn't factor it out. So multiplying 3 times 4. So I'm going to leave this first number. I'm multiplying this one, so I'm circling it, and I'm multiplying it by this number. But this number stays the same. Letter stays the same. Z squared minus Z minus, now I'm going to take this first number, multiply by the last number. That's 12. Okay? So now we're going to factor this like we always did. Later on, we're going to divide, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay? So same or different? We said different because the last number is negative, meaning there's going to be one positive in here, one negative. Okay? So what are your multiples of 12? That subtract to give you 1. Can you think of it? Okay. 12 is 2 times 6. 2 minus 6 is not 1, that's 4. And then 3 and 4, so 3 minus 4 is 1. The bigger number has to be negative because of that. So 4 has to be negative, and your 3 is there. So when you do the circle sliding dividing thing, the same number that you multiply by 4 to get 12, you have to divide once you get to this part. Once you get to the part where you factored it, now you're going to divide by that same number, just the numbers part. Okay? Just the numbers part there. So we know 3 divided by 3 is 1. So this now becomes Z plus 1. We have to simplify. Okay? Simplify. If it doesn't simplify, then like 4 divided by 3 doesn't simplify, you're going to take 3 and move it here in front of Z. So this now becomes 3Z minus 4. Okay? And this now is your factors. You are done. Now, if you've never done that before, they definitely probably teach you something different on Alex. You need multiple ways to answer the same problems. Yes, this to me is so much easier. When I learned this in college, I learned it right. Yeah, college, I thought it was awesome. And I've been using it ever since. And it works very, very good, especially if you do it. If you do it the way that Alex teaches you, that's great too. I like this way. Okay? First thing I do, is there a greatest common factor between them? Does not look like it. 7, 12, and 4. I don't think anything. Nope. So now I'm going to take the 7, multiply it by 4. So x squared plus 12x minus 7 times 4 is 28. And later on, I'm going to be dividing by 7. But first, I need a factor. Same or different? Different. Which means 1 positive, 1 negative. You're subtracting to get the middle. Okay? What are your multiples of 28 that subtract to give you 12? Okay? 14 and 2. Bigger number is the same sign. It's going to be positive. Bigger number is positive. The middle number, when you say different, the middle number is on the same side as the biggest number, 12 and 2. Again, don't forget later on, the same number you multiply by, you have to divide by that same number. Okay? So we know that 14 divided by 7 is 2. And here, it doesn't simplify. If it was a fraction that needed to be simplified, you do have to simplify that here. But 2 and 7 doesn't simplify. So this becomes 7x. I'm going to move this 7 right in front of there, minus 2. This is your answer for your circle slide divide. Let's go to the back. Okay. All right. So we're looking here. This is the first one that has a little x on it. 2x squared, 7xy, 6y squared. Can we factor anything out of those three? It doesn't look like it. So let's do circle slide divide. And this is the same concept. The only difference is you're going to put an extra thing at the end, and I will show you. So we know that we're going to have x squared plus 7xy plus 2 times 6 is 12y squared. Same or different? Same, because the last number is negative. Last number, when you say same or different, you're only looking at the last number. You don't care what the middle number is doing at that time. So meaning that both of them are positive. How do we know if the middle number is positive? We don't worry about the middle number when we say same or different, but after we say same, they're both whatever that middle number is. If we say different, one positive, one negative. Okay? Saying, what are your multiples of 12 to add to give you 7? 4, 3. Again, you'll start getting this. 4 and 3 add to give you 7. Okay? Only difference here, you don't do a y at the end. Okay? So we're going to divide by whatever number we multiply by, which is 2. We're going to divide by that same number. This becomes x plus 2y. Okay? This one you cannot simplify. If you can, you need to, but you can't. This becomes 2x plus 3y. That is your answer there. Okay? All right, so if you have this negative out front, you're going to actually take out, basically what's happening there is you have a factor that's common. The negative is the negative in the front. If you have a negative in front, we're going to take that negative out. That's the first thing we're going to do. And it looks like there's no other factors between 2, 13, and 15. So this becomes 2x squared. And when you take the negative out, it changes the sign of everything. This now becomes positive. This becomes positive. Sorry, 13 plus 15. Okay. So same thing we've been doing. 2 multiplied by 15. Later on, we're going to divide. I usually put this little thing so I don't forget to divide, because if you just forget to divide, then your answer is going to be wrong. So this becomes x squared plus 13x plus, 30. Okay. Same or different? Same, meaning both positive. Same means same sign. Both positive or both negative. In this case, both positive. Multiples of 30 that add to give you 13, 3 and 10. 3 and 10. Again, it will come easier to you. Don't forget to divide by that number. Okay? Can't simplify there. This becomes 2x plus 3. I'm moving it right in front. This becomes x plus 10, please. X plus 5, because 10 divided by 2 is 5. Don't forget this negative. The negative stays out front. The whole thing with the negative in front is our answer. Okay? We brought this negative straight down. We didn't forget about it. It was up here. We took it out, and we have to bring it down. That's going to be in our answer. Got it? All right. Let's try here. Can we factor any numbers out of there? If there's a negative in front, you have to factor it out. That's when you factor out when it's up front, even if it's not in all of them. Just make sure if it's the first number's negative, take that negative out. 2u squared plus 3u minus 14. Again, if you take the negative out, you have to change the sign of everything, okay? Which is what I did. Now, circle slide divide. U squared plus 3u minus, 28? Okay. So, same or different? Different, because the last number is negative. Okay. That means you subtract to get the middle. Subtract to get the middle. What are your multiples of 28? Subtract to give you 3. Looks like 7 and 4. So we said different. That means one positive, one negative. That's what different means. Bigger number is going to be positive because of this. Okay? So we said 7 and 4. 7 is positive, 4 is negative. Now that we did the slide, we have to make sure you divide by that number. Okay? Doesn't simplify. Bring it to the front. This becomes 2u plus 7 and u minus 2. Bring that negative down. Don't forget this negative. It comes down in the answer. And that's where you see it again. The negative. Got it? Good. foremost, can we factor out a greatest common factor? No. Doesn't even have the number up front. Okay. Same or different. Same. Okay, because the last number is positive. Same meaning the same sign. These are both the same sign. What are your multiples of 25 that add to give you 10? 5 and 5. These are looks like they're the exact same. This is your answer. Okay. 5, y plus 5 becomes y plus 5 squared. Okay. Ooh, this is a short days of notes. Thank you. Goodness. Okay. All right, so let's look here. They want you to factor this. When you have one that is a perfect square and a perfect square with a minus in between, if it has a plus in between, you cannot factor it. It's not factorable with a plus in between, only with a minus. And they have to be both perfect squares. Okay, two numbers that multiply together to get another number. So this one is z times z. This one is what? 5 times 5. With the negative in between, your answer is going to be z plus 5, z minus 5. Okay, perfect square, whatever multiplies to get those two, it'll be z plus 5, z minus 5 in this case. All right, same thing here. Perfect square, 49 is 7 times 7. Perfect square, z squared is z times z. This one is going to be 7 minus z, 7 plus z. Okay, perfect squares. You got to be able to recognize them. All right, same thing here. Oh, that's the same as that. See, we're not doing it anyway. What about here? Z squared is z times z. 81x squared. 9x times 9x. So this one would be z plus 9x, z minus 9x. All right. Okay. So again, has to be a perfect square in order for it to come out correctly. Let's go down here. 25 is 5 times 5. 9u squared is 3. 3u times 3u. So this is 5 minus 3u. 5 plus 3u. All right. I changed this one. If you have this one on your sheet, I kind of changed it so that it works out a little better. 64 is 8 times 8a. 64a squared is 8a times 8a. 4z to the 4th is 2z squared times 2z squared. Okay, that one is good. That's why I changed it. I wanted to show you that one. So this one becomes 8a minus 4, or 4. I just said it's 2z squared. 2z squared, 8a plus 2z squared. Okay, again, that is still a perfect square. 2z squared times 2z squared. How do we know that? Let's look at that. Let's do some thinking on that one. Okay, that's my little thinking thought. So 2z squared times 2z squared. 2 times 2 is 4. And we know that these have the same base. Add the exponent, z to the 4th. Okay, that's how we know that is true. That's just my thought outside of this. These are my little thought bubbles. All right, now here. First things first, does it have a greatest common factor? That I can tell because they're both even. So I know it very at least has that. So it has a 2. That's the greatest common factor. What about this u? There's a u here and a u cubed here. So I'm going to take out a u, at least one u. There's a v cubed and a v here. I'm going to take out at least one v. What is left over when I took out my greatest common factor? From this particular one, if I took out 2u and 1v, v squared is left over. Minus, if I take 72 and divide that by 2, I get 36. And then if I take out one u from that, that's u squared. If I take out one v, it's gone. So now look at this. I took out the greatest common factor. This is the perfect square. B times B, this is the perfect square. 6u times 6u. So I have this as my greatest common factor. I can do V plus, it doesn't matter. V plus 6u, V minus 6u. Okay, doesn't matter which one comes first, as long as you have both. As long as you have those perfect squares, you can factor it that way. Got it? That was kind of quick, but practice. Do some practice in Alex. You should be just fine.